Since times immemorial, the humanity has sought to know the true name of God, a name that, according to the scriptures, has an unimaginable power, capable of creating, transforming, and granting eternal life. However, that name has been deliberately hidden, because the Bible he mentions it more than 6,800 times, but few people know it, have seen written, and even less, they have heard his pronunciation. The modern translations they have replaced by titles such as Lord or God, leaving in the shadow one of the most important keys of the faith. But what? What would happen if that name had never been lost? What if it had always been, would have been before us eyes, hidden in a code that only some they can decipher? For centuries, the wise men Jews, they taught that the sacred name was so powerful that it could only be pronounced by the high priest once a year, in the Day of the Atonement, inside the Temple of Jerusalem. But when the temple was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70 AD, the pronunciation exact was lost, or perhaps was intentionally silenced. Some they claim that this mystery is about to be revealed. Others they believe that the modern science has traces of God's signature discovered in the human genetic code, and there are who they maintain that the true God's name will be pronounced again in the time finals, as prophesied by the Apocalypse. What secrets does the Tetragrammaton? What relationship has Jesus with this sacred name? Could the modern genetic manipulation, may be altering the signature of God in the humanity? What you are about to discover could change the way you see life, forever reality. Stay tuned. In the next chapter we will reveal the mystery of the Tetragrammaton. The real one name of God has been one of the best kept secrets of the history. It is not just about a name, but of an enigma, a code that seems to contain the key to the existence same. In the Bible, this name is represented by 4 Hebrew letters: Yod, Y, He, H, Vav, V, He, H. Together, they form the Tetragrammaton, a term that literally means 4 letters, but its pronunciation exactly is a mystery. In the ancient world, the names were not just words, but expressions of being and the essence of who the war. And this name in particular was unique. When Moses found himself with the bramble hot and asked the name of God, the answer was enigmatic. I am who I am. Exodus 3:14. But with time, the pronunciation of the sacred name became a taboo. In the tradition Jewish, was only the high priest could pronounce it, and he did it only once a year, in the most sacred place in the Temple of Jerusalem. As they passed for centuries, fear and reverence caused it to be stopped from being taught, as say it correctly. Scribes began replacing it with titles such as Adonai, Lord, or Elohim, God, until its use faded away, almost completely. With the destruction of the Second Temple in the year 70 AD, the oral tradition that preserved the pronunciation was lost forever. Some, they claim that it happened by accident, a side effect of the devastation of the town Hebrew under the Roman rule. Others, they think it was a deliberate act, a way to protect the name of those who could having misused it. But there is something else. If this name was so sacred and powerful, why would God allow it to be lost? Unless his true nature has never been in the sound of its lyrics, but something much deeper. Ancient world was full of names of deities that were invoked in rituals and ceremonies. However, the name of the God of Israel was different. He was not a simple title, but a manifestation of its own essence. Pronouncing it not only evoked their presence, but according to the beliefs, beings could unleash immeasurable power. But that power was lost. For centuries, the Tetragrammaton, it was carefully transmitted within the priestly tradition. Only the high priest could pronounce it out loud, and it toward only in the Day of the Atonement within the most holy place from the Temple of Jerusalem. It was said that, upon hearing it, those present fell to their knees, overwhelmed by its force. But then occurred it unthinkable. In the year 70 AD, the Roman legions, under the command of General Titus, besieged Jerusalem and destroyed her second temple. With he disappeared the sacred rituals, and along with them the pronunciation exact of the divine name. The priests who knew the secret was murdered or dispersed. The oral tradition that kept alive the phonetics of Tetragrammaton vanished in the chaos. And so, what once was the most sacred sound of the humanity became in an echo lost in the history. From that moment on, the name of God ceased to be spoken. In the synagogues, the biblical texts, they kept it written, but when reading it out loud, it was replaced by Adonai or Hashem, the name. With he over time, even the deeper meaning of his lyrics began to fade. Some, they believed that this loss was not a simple historical accident, but a prophesied event, a divine silence that would await the right time to be broken. But others, they maintain that the name was never really lost, but its true form remains hidden, waiting to be rediscovered. And perhaps, without many it know, the key to understanding its meaning has been before us eyes all over the time. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus did many shocking statements, but there was one in particular that provoked a reaction immediate and dangerous among the religious leaders of his time. On one occasion, while I was arguing with the Pharisees on the identity of the Messiah, he spoke words that resonated like a thunder. Before Abraham was, I am. John 8:58. With this phrase, Jesus was not only speaking of his existence before the patriarch Abraham, he was doing something much more daring. He was linking up directly with the sacred name of God. In the book of Exodus, when Moses meets with the bramble burning, asks God, what is his name? The answer he receives is, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, which translates as, I am who I am. This is the root of the Tetragrammaton, the divine name that the Jews did not pronounce aloud. The Pharisees, they understood immediately the gravity of his words. For them, Jesus was not only talking in parables or making a theological statement, he was attributing itself, he name of God, what in its context was blasphemy unforgivable. That's why, in that at the same moment, they took stones to kill him. According to the law, Jewish, someone who pronounced the sacred name in a way undue deserved capital punishment. But Jesus did not go the only one in due reference to this mystery. On several occasions, his disciples also, they hinted that in he resided the fullness of the divine name. In Philippians 2:9-10, Paul writes, God has given you, he exalted him to the highest place, and gave a name that is above every name. What does this really mean? Is it possible that the mystery of the Tetragrammaton was hidden in the person of Jesus? The true meaning of name of God seems to extend beyond the words, touching on dimensions we are still trying to understand. If the God's name is more than a simple sound, if it is a key to understanding the divine nature and the creation same, could it be registered in the most fundamental structure of life? Some scientists and scholars have found an intriguing connection between the Tetragrammaton and human DNA. Life, as we know it, is encoded in a sequence of 4 nitrogenous bases: adenine, A, thymine, T, cytosine, C, and guanine, G. 4 fundamental elements that combined contain the genetic information of every living being. Interestingly, the Hebrew ancient the language in the one that was written the most of the Bible, assigns numerical values to its letters through the gematria. And when they are analyzed, the numerical relationships between the bases of DNA and the letters of the name of God, Yod, He, Vav, He, arise patterns surprising. Some researchers have proposed that the chemical sequence that maintains the structure of DNA is grouped into patterns that correspond to the repetition of the Tetragrammaton. In other words, the code of life could be sealed with He name of God. Is this just a coincidence, or is it the signature of the Creator printed in every human cell? Beyond the science, this idea has profound theological implications. If the God's name is embedded in DNA, then every human being carries within himself a divine mark, a biological reminder of your sacred origin. But this brings us to a disturbing question: whether genetics contains God's signature. What happens when the humanity begins to alter DNA? In the current events, the science has reached the power to modify the genetic code, which opens up new possibilities, but also enormous dilemmas. Just because DNA is marked with a sacred name, then any disturbance could mean more than a simple biological change. It could be, without us knowing it. Let us know a way to erase God's signature in the creation. For centuries, the humanity has tried to understand her mystery of life, but only recently have obtained the power to modify it. With the advancement of the biotechnology and the genetic engineering, we can now alter human DNA, changing what once seemed immutable. This brings us to a disturbing question: whether DNA really contains God's signature. What happens when scientists begin to rewrite it? Gene editing technology, such as CRISPR-Cas9, has allowed researchers to modify the genetic sequence with a precision unprecedented. What was once just science fiction, today it is a reality. We can correct genetic defects, enhance physical capabilities, and even create completely new organisms. But is there a limit? They think we are playing with forces we do not understand. In the biblical tradition, there is warnings about the corruption of the original creation. In the time of Noah, the world was contaminated by beings who altered the natural order, which led to the great flood. If human DNA contains the name of God, is it possible that the changes in our genetic code is a repetition of that ancient mistake? In addition, there is another concern: the transhumanism. This movement seeks to merge the human body with the technology, improving physical and cognitive abilities up to a spot in the one who humanity, such as we know, cease to exist. They think this is the following past in the evolution. Others, however, they see it as a spiritual threat. The book of Revelation mentions that in the end times there will be who receive a mark that will separate them from God. Could it be that without give us account, let's be moving forward toward a future where the human identity is altered in a manner irreversible? And if genetics is the manifestation of the divine name in we, then the most disturbing question is, are we in the threshold of a world where that sacred signature will be erased forever? Throughout the history, the name of God has remained hidden, protected by the tradition and the mystery. His pronunciation exact was lost with the destruction of the temple. Its meaning was replaced by titles, and their essence, perhaps, was encoded in life itself. But if his sacred name was silenced, does this mean it will never be restored? In the book of the Apocalypse, there is an intriguing prophecy. You will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. Revelation 22:4. This statement suggests that in the end time, the God's name will be revealed again and marked on those who belong. Is this a symbol or something much more literal? They believe that this revelation will be spiritual, a return to the comprehension of the divine name as an expression of the essence of God. Others suggest that it could be a knowledge forbidden that has been waiting for the right moment to come to light. It is true that the search for this mystery continues. Throughout the centuries, scholars, mystics, and scientists have tried to decipher the true nature of the Tetragrammaton, finding clues in the Bible, in the numerology, and even in the human biology. But there is one last question that few dare to ask. What will happen when the name of God be revealed again? Because if it really is as powerful as they say the scriptures, then his return could mean much more than a simple discovery. It could mark the beginning of a new time. Perhaps the moment of that revelation is closer than we imagine. From the antiquity, the true name of God has been considered a sacred mystery, a secret so powerful that it was hidden, silenced, and eventually forgotten. Yet its presence remains latent in the scriptures, in the history, and perhaps in the own structure of life. The Tetragrammaton is not just a set of letters. It represents the essence of the Creator, his eternal existence, and its link with the humanity. Throughout this journey, we have seen how his disappearance was not a simple accident, but an event with profound implications spiritual. Jesus, by saying, "I am," made those who they understood the meaning of his words. The wise men of the antique, they believed that the name was registered in the creation, and the modern science has uncovered patterns in DNA that seems to confirm this idea. But now, in an era where humanity has started to modify its own essence, a disturbing question arises. Are we approaching the restoration of the name of God, or risk losing it forever? The prophecies of the Apocalypse, they talk about a time in the one that his name will be revealed and marked on his chosen ones. Are we closer to that time, or is it a knowledge that still should remain hidden? Leave us your opinion in the comments. Do you think that the God's name should be revealed or remain a mystery? What do you think about his possible connection with DNA? If this topic has impacted you, share this video with someone who also can find in He answers or new questions. And remember, there are mysteries that are not made to be hidden forever.